What's the most idiotic rule you've ever been expected to abide by? Giving up my nail clippers at airport security. I fly the planes. If you can hijack an airplane with nail clippers, you don't need the nail clippers. Counterterrorism in the airport is a show designed to make people feel better. Only two things have made flying safer: the reinforcement of cockpit doors, and the fact that passengers know now to resist hijackers. Bruce Schneier. I went to a Catholic school from 1st to 8th grade, so you can imagine just how many absolutely ridiculous rules we had to follow, but I think the worst was when we got a male principal, and he made a rule that we were no longer allowed to wear shorts under our skirts. At the time I was only upset about it because it made no sense to me since no one could even see the shorts, but once I got older I realized just how sick it was. You know, I think I would have told my kids to wear the shorts, and to call me and tell me every time someone reported one of them for wearing the shorts. This freaks me out. I think it double freaks me out how the parents obviously didn't have anything to say on that rule. That I have to dress business casual, even though a customer will never enter our facility. Agreed, I did telesales for about a month. We were required to wear shirt and tie because it made us sound professional. I worked at Pizza Hut for a while. We got an order for 5 pepperoni pizzas. So I laid out 5 discs of dough, stretched them all, then sauced them all. You know, the most efficient way to do it. The manager came over and said I was doing it wrong, that I had to make each pizza start to finish, place it in the oven, then make the next one. I told him he was an idiot and kept doing it the efficient way. GM came in later and totally had my back. Christ, that's a pathetic victory. I was on vacation with my girlfriend at the time, and her dad had a no peeing standing up rule. Literally, I was not allowed to piss standing up in his house. He said this to me at the beginning of the vacation, and I thought he meant to make sure the toilet seat was down after I used it since he only had daughters and wanted to protect them or something. So one time when I was peeing standing up, as any man would, my girlfriend's mom says from outside the door that she can hear someone peeing while standing up. Still taking this as a joke, I admitted that it was me. I then got a 30-minute lecture on how I should obey his rules and not piss standing up. Still one of my biggest what-the-fuck moments in a relationship. I wasn't allowed to watch PG-13 or higher movies, or the book, comic, game, ECT equivalent, until I moved out of my parents' house at 19. Additionally, I was not allowed to have my computer in my room. Not entirely unreasonable. The weird thing about that is it kept being true after I got married and was just visiting. See, in that case what you say is, okay, we're going to stay at a hotel then. If only we had the money. My boyfriend and I saved up and pulled this at Thanksgiving once. His parents didn't want us sleeping in the same room. We're late 20s and have been living together for years, so we got a hotel room that year. After that one time they've always let us stay in the same room when we visit, and they've never brought it up again. At my high school, when someone was late they would just have the teacher mark tardy on their computer. Most students were never more than a minute late. They just couldn't get to class fast enough and would walk in 30 seconds late or so. Our principal had the brilliant idea of instead having a tardy table all the way across the school where students would go, line up, and register as being tardy. If you were late to class, the teacher would send you to the tardy table instead of just marking you late themselves. Instead of having a teacher mark the 1 or 2 people who showed up tardy to their class, you had late students from all classes lining up to register as tardy with only one person to process them at the tardy table. The result was students ending up 15 to 30 minutes late to class because they were waiting in line to register as tardy. The parents were not pleased, but the principal insisted that it would reduce the number of students who were late overall. I'm not sure if they kept it or not. The tardy table was started just a few months before I quit school. I worked in daycare. We had classroom ratios. Say 1 teacher must be in the room for every 5 children there. My new boss wanted us to call her when we needed to go to the bathroom, and wait for her to come and cover us for the time it took us to go pee. Okay, so this doesn't sound so bad. Except we'd call her, and she'd tell us to hold it, or she'd say that she was busy with something and would be there in a second, and then a half an hour later when we're slinking down the hall to the bathroom she'd yell at us for being in the hall. She also wrote me up for being too loud. In a daycare. I was singing songs to infants during circle time, and they were all sitting quietly and clapping. She was crazy. My entire generation had to endure the don't go swimming for an hour after you eat, or you'll get a cramp thing. It keeps kids from vomiting in the pool. Yet everyone who laughs at this joke has never seen vomit in a pool. It's a ridiculously time-consuming and disgusting project. No one really wants to swim afterwards. I'm glad this fib caught on. I went to a semi-boarding high school. About 10% of students boarded, and new dorms were constructed while I was there. We had a big meeting, and the principal said, "No students of the opposite sex in your dorm room. We don't want anyone having sex." A bit paraphrased. One of the students stood up and said, "What about the gay kids? They get to have sex." So for about a month, the rule was, no students of the opposite or same sex in your dorm room, with the exception of your roommate. One time at my high school, some kid got busted dealing pot from a bathroom near the auditorium. As a result, students were barred from using that bathroom for the rest of the semester. I'm sure that completely solved the problem. I once took a part-time job, from a temp agency, at a Toys R Us distribution warehouse where my job was to cut open boxes, place it all on a pallet, and put the pallet in the bottom of the stacks, large shelves. We were all just extra people they needed for the extra Christmas workload. Met all kinds of interesting people, including an elderly husband and wife who were farmers trying to make ends meet. Well, anyway, the one person in charge of us was an absolute cunt. She was a permanent Toys R Us employee. We were treated like shit. Oftentimes we didn't have any boxes to cut open and were made to stand still at our tables, large, but low metal tables with 4 people to stand around and do nothing. If we moved around, or heaven forbid we sat down on the table, we were screamed at. I guess they thought if we were going to be paid for doing nothing, that we should suffer for it. Standing in one spot for up to 4 hours straight would absolutely kill my back. I have run into a lot of jobs where the rules seem to be just made to punish employees. Oftentimes because of what some bad employee did in the past, and now all future employees have to pay for it. I worked at a Toys R Us store for Christmas as extra help stacking the empty shelves overnight. We had a rule that if there was nothing to do, you'd go to the warehouse in the back and drive around like a maniac in those little electric toy cars. I don't think this was official policy though. At a private school I went to, it was mandatory for all boys to wear ties on Wednesdays. If you didn't wear one, you were sent to home to get one. Well, one day I forgot. Luckily, I was blessed with the ingenuity of MacGyver that day and made a tie out of a long piece of paper towel. It worked for a couple hours until some a-holes in my class pointed it out. Apparently, paper is not an acceptable material for ties. I was sent home. Back in high school, our then dean of students, a woman who literally carried around a ruler to see if girls' skirts were too short, tried to bring about a rule where girls had to have sleeved dresses at school dances. That rule didn't last long, as in before the next school dance. One of the female teachers, 35, told her that, after spending the weekend going to different stores, there was not a single sleeved dress that either she or a 16-year-old would want to buy. Half the school would have been in detention if they hadn't taken out that rule. While working at a store, I was not allowed to flatten boxes outside of the box flattening area. Years 7 to 11 in the academy I go to, but I'm in year 12 now, so don't have to wear uniform, have to wear thick black blazers year-round, and you're not allowed to take them off for any reason, except science experiments and art. In 2009 there was a mini heat wave and we still weren't allowed to take off our blazers. Many detentions were given over that week for taking off the blazers so we wouldn't get too hot. When I was in high school there was a rule that students were not allowed to grow facial hair in any form. If a student tried to grow facial hair or just plain didn't have the time to shave before getting to class, which started at 7 a.m., he was sent to the disciplinary office, scolded by the vice principal, and forced to shave with a single-bladed disposable razor and no shaving cream. Multiple of my friends faced this punishment. I asked several teachers why this rule was in effect, and most of them simply stated that they didn't know. I got one answer out of the dozen teachers I asked, and that was, "It's so that the students don't look like they're older and get mistaken as faculty. This would allow them to roam the halls and not get sent back to class." To which I could only respond, "Why don't you just learn what your coworkers look like?" The football coach was not happy with me after that. In year 7, our principal sat all of us down and made us sign a contract saying we wouldn't do drugs, smoke, drink, or have sex while a student at our school. Whoever didn't want to sign it got a very stern talking to. It was a Christian Scientist school, and was incredibly conservative. I'm not a Christian Scientist, but my folks thought it was a school worth sending me to, I guess. Suffocating. Barely anyone actually was true to the contract. Whenever there was word of a party involving alcohol, people got in trouble. But for our principal to think he'd be able to police that stuff, I think was pretty naive. My elementary school tried to get us to sign a pledge that we would never use any drugs, including alcohol, in our lifetime. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.